So hello my friends, Devon Lennox here, PhotographyPX. In today's video, we're gonna have an exclusive interview with our model for today's shoot. All right, so here we are. This is Christine Coe. She's the model for our geisha inspired look. And you guys can check out the behind the scenes if you wanna kind of see how we did today's shoot and things of that nature. But since she's on set, I wanted to ask her, and she's all kind of glammed up and she's looking, you know, like absolutely awesome, which is great. Ask her a little bit of questions as far as like, you know, when it comes to photographers reaching out to models, what should we do, you know? Absolutely. So Christine, the first question I wanted to ask, what do you think, or well, actually no, what do you look for when you reach out to a new photographer? Like for example, like Keisha over here, like she sent you my profile, but what were you kind of looking at? Like when you first saw my profile, or what do you look at when you're looking for a new photographer? If you want to work with someone new, or say you're new to Vegas or whatever that may be.
I usually look at the photographer's whole portfolio, so
Okay.
I kind of try to see if they match my style as well, because I feel like it should definitely be a mutually beneficial trade or relationship that's going on between the photographer and the model. Besides that, I'm open to creative looks and things that are kind of out of the ordinary. I feel like Las Vegas has a very similar standard style in terms of just like sexy and glam, and so I definitely like to find photographers who like to think outside the box.
Okay, yeah, I love that. Yeah, because yeah, just like you're saying, I think like Las Vegas is just, it's a very boudoir and like just like you're saying, sexy, like cocktail waitress kind of vibe.
Right.
And it's hard to find people that are breaking that mold because it's so much easier and people can get so much more, I guess, like from a social media standpoint, they can get more like an audience, you know, they can get more following and stuff like that. It's harder to do things that aren't that in Vegas because it's so much more niche, right? But that's gonna be one of the, I guess for me, the biggest like difference maker, you know, is that are you doing something that's unique to you?
Right.
I think that's important as well. It's like a lot of photographers, and that's something that we stress here, is like, you know, you have to ultimately find what's your vision? How do you see the world? Because that's what photography really is. It's like your perspective on the world. I can shoot the same thing as someone over here, but since I'm not them, I don't actually create the same thing in the end.
Right, and I totally agree, because I feel like one of the things that I value is authenticity. So to be true and authentic to your own self. So whatever style you want to portray, make sure that's from your heart and from your own like creative space. Yeah,
I love that. Okay, so do you like when photographers have mood and concept boards, or do you prefer improv? Like, how do you feel about that?
Oh, I totally love it when photographers have mood and concept boards, because I've had so many instances where I come to the shoot and what they had in mind and what I had in mind were totally different things.
Okay.
But at the same time too, I kind of place my trust in the photographer, because I feel that as a model, my mind is not as creative as a photographer. So what they might see through the camera,
it's
totally
I might think,
they might be like, oh, pose like this or like that, and it feels awkward, or I feel in my head, oh, I might look kind of crazy. But when you actually see it on camera, it looks magnificent. So in that sense, I kind of do place actually a lot of trust within the photographer.
Okay, so but you'd still prefer them to have a mood board, or you just like, okay, I'm just gonna
a mood board is always nice to set down a solid foundation. That's great. But I know some photographers,
they don't work that way though.
They don't work that way.
Yeah,
so
some people don't work that way. That's true.
It's nice to kind of work with both photographers, because not all photographers are the same, but I would definitely say I do prefer somebody who does provide a mood board.
Okay, yeah, awesome. So do you think it's important to meet with a photographer prior to shooting with them, or would you rather whether it be for coffee or whatever, just to kind of gauge that person's personality? I know you and I didn't meet because obviously you already know someone here, so there's already a little bit of trust established there, but do you think that's important for when you're reaching out to a new photographer, or they reach out to you to do a collab, or maybe it's paid or whatever? Do you think it's important to meet prior, or?
You know what? That's a great question, because I personally have not really done that in my experience. So I probably don't have the best opinion on that, because I honestly feel like in this industry, a lot of people, they're like, I don't really have time, or everything is just done through social media or through messaging. I think just as long as you get a positive vibe from the photographer, I've just gone along with it.
Yeah.
I like to think I have a good, sense of what a person is going to be like. So
Okay.
I have not experienced anything strange or too weird when meeting with photographers just like right away without meeting prior.
Yeah.
But I definitely wouldn't mind if a photographer did ask to meet up in person prior to the shoot. I feel like that kind of shows a little bit more of professionalism.
Yeah, the professionalism. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of, a lot of people, that's like probably the biggest thing I've heard is like people just have to be professional, and reaching out to
Right.
people or, doing the shoot and not being, again, weird, but.
Yeah, or I mean, like, as long as the photographer, if the communication is good,
Yeah.
they send you the mood board, they send you the time, they want this, this, and this, and
Yeah.
they lay it out for you, then it already shows you that they're serious.
They're serious. Yeah. There's no funny business going on, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I love that. That's awesome. So if a photographer reaches out to you, how should that initial first message sound? Sometimes it's a little bit different if people are agency represented because they would reach out to an agency, for example. But if they're reaching out to you personally, like what should we kind of say? Should we just be like, hey, we discovered your profile X, Y, and Z. Maybe I know X, Y, and Z. I love your work, things of that nature, and then go into like, here's our idea. When should we kind of mention like if it's gonna be free or paid? How do you kind of feel about that? Like, what do you think like that first message should sound like, or like what should we kind of, what are the key, I guess, points we should kind of mention in that first message?
I feel like most of the time it is a appreciation, like, oh, I really like your work, I really love your style,
Yeah.
I like your look, and then going on from there, most of the time photographers like to ask, would you like to set up a shoot? I think, of course, within the first or second first few messages, I think that's when the conversation between like, is it going to be a trade, is it going to be paid, should be kind of established, because a lot of times too, some people, they might come across later on and be like, oh, well, actually I was, the rate is like this, or I
Oh,
thought,
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
yeah, so I always like to make sure that it's upfront, or if there are any terms and conditions, like, oh, you are only getting 10 images, or
Yeah.
you're only getting 2 fully edited images, but you'll get the rest of the raw.
Okay.
Just that kind of conversation is always nice to have as well.
Okay, yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's good. So if a photographer is new, what do you think would help them in reaching out to models for the first time? Just like, because we all start at zero,
Right,
like
right.
we all start like just shooting. Well, maybe not everyone. I mean, I started shooting like flowers and landscapes and all that stuff because I didn't have any models in the beginning.
Right.
You have to get over that initial hump. Like, what do you think would kind of assist someone in reaching out to a model for the first time? Like, say, maybe they were like shooting some of their friends or whatever, and they're just like, okay, now I'm like ready to like reach out to someone that actually has a little bit more experience, so I can start to learn with someone that is a little bit further ahead on their journey. Like, what do you think would kind of help someone in that situation?
Well, like I said before, a lot of times the photographers that I like to work with, I look at their portfolio. And so in the case where it's a photographer that's brand new, maybe their skills aren't as polished. But I think in that case, I'm willing to work with all different photographers and also to help build their portfolios.
Yeah.
So just as long as you're upfront and say, like, hey, I'm new to this, but I would really love to work with you. If, you can just give me the chance.
Yeah.
And just be straightforward and very honest. And I think people can sense that sincerity.
Yeah.
And they can also sense that passion. And if somebody has that like raw passion to do better, I think that there are people out there that will want to help you too. So
Okay.
I just think to be honest and straightforward.
Okay, yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. And then as a model, where do you think are good places for photographers to reach local models? Would you just say Instagram? Would you say like, is there like maybe an event or something? I mean, I did Instameets, like when Instameet was a huge thing out here.
You know what?
yeah.
I have not like updated my Model Mayhem in like years.
Model Mayhem's still a thing, yeah.
I know, but there are actually quite a few photographers that still like use Model Mayhem, and I'll get messages from them. So I'm actually kind of surprised. I'm not really much of a social media person, but I've noticed that is kind of how photographers are
Still finding
models. And
Yeah.
so because of that, it's allowed me to realize that I really should kind of like ante up my social media skills. But I think because we live in kind of like the digital age right now, that it's probably the best way for photographers to kind of interact and meet new models.
Okay, yeah, I agree. Yeah, Model Mayhem, I just made one like 2 weeks ago, so yeah, I'm on there. Yes, I need to update my profile, which is something I need to do. Okay, what are some of your pet peeves or turnoffs when working with a new photographer?
Pet peeves, probably.
Or like a red flag, anything like that?
Well, obviously, like the biggest ones for females, or even males in the industry, is just like creepiness. Like, just don't be weird. Don't. Like one time I had this photographer. We were shooting, and it was like glam, and I was in lingerie. But for the way that I like to do lingerie or like sexy is kind of more commercial. Okay, so like kind of like Victoria's, like Victoria's
I know
Secret,
what you mean,
or you know, like not nothing too sexy. But he just kept asking me questions like, oh, like why don't you want to be in Maxim, or like why don't you want to be like in Playboy? And I'm just like,
it's a different vibe.
Yeah, it's like that's not what I'm trying to achieve right now.
Yeah.
And so he would constantly like ask those questions, and it was getting to the point where I was getting really uncomfortable, and I had to be like, okay, like I'm sorry, but I have other things to do, and I can't be wasting my time being around this kind of energy.
Yeah.
And so just don't be weird. And another thing would be kind of wasting time, like being on one look for like hours and hours, or not really communicating your thoughts. Like sometimes if a photographer wants one thing, but then it in the model's head, it's something totally different.
Yeah, that's always true.
And then the photographer's like, no, can you do it like this? Can you do it like that? Which, like I said before, I feel like mood boards kind of come in handy. So
it clears.
Yeah. So just don't take too long in your shoots, and don't be weird and creepy, and respect the model.
Okay, I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, no one's talking about like shooting like too long on the same pose and stuff like that, and just like in the same look. Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good insight. Yeah, you got to make it just kind of not like super quick, but you want to make sure you're getting what you want.
Yeah, I would like efficiency. Especially if you're doing trade. Because I always like to think like time is money.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the time that you're shooting, or like say the model is not understanding your concept, and then it's dragging the shoot on.
Yeah.
Well, like that hour that model is not understanding your concept, you could have used that hour to be editing photos, or like doing something else, or filming videos for YouTube or whatever. So I just always feel like time is money, and the more efficient that you are, the better.
Okay. Wow. Dropping bombs. Bomb sandwich. That's great. So I hope you guys got some value from this, and we'll be having more exclusive interviews, but that was awesome. I appreciate you taking the time to answer some of our questions and pick our brain a little bit. I hope that you guys are starting to see some of the commonalities and things of that nature, especially when it comes to reaching out to models. It's not as daunting as it may seem. You have to start somewhere, so definitely just start shooting something. But you have to you have to start somewhere. But know that there's people that are going to be helpful during that process, and not to say it's a numbers game, but just have a little bit of reassurance knowing that it's possible. Because I didn't start that way, I don't know, maybe I got lucky or whatever. I just reached out to the right people, and they just happened to say yes. But at the same time, it's I hope that you guys are starting to get some value from these interviews, things of that nature. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing if you haven't yet. We'd love to have you as a part of the community. Hit us up with a like and a comment down in the description down below. Let us know if there's kind of any questions that you'd like me to follow up and ask her, or maybe she said something you didn't quite understand and you want some clarification. Let me know in the comments. We can start that discussion down below. And this is Devon Lennox, PhotographyPX. Stay locked in. We'll catch you in the next video. Peace out.